Hi, welcome to Conversational Frame Control, where we analyze different communication in order to build our own ability to be persuasive, be powerful in everyday life. And here's an example of that. In this video, we're going to be talking about a gentleman named Rich Piana. Rich Piana was a very big guy, very big, successful bodybuilder. And he made this video to discuss a controversy that was taking place with one of his friends named Mike O'Hearn. Mike O'Hearn is another bodybuilder who's also very huge, not quite as big as Rich Piana, but he's a very jacked guy. And the controversy surrounding him and his success is that he's one of the few bodybuilders that is, claims to not in any way use steroids. Says he never has. So the problem there is that a lot of people who have done steroids and have done working out are under the understanding that that would be impossible to maintain a physique. Now, I'm not really going to weigh in as to whether I think it's possible that he's genetically just gifted, and then plus the work ethic in order to maintain that body without abusing any substances. But just from what I could tell, it doesn't appear to be realistic that that's the case. It is what it is. This is not a moralistic video about the use of steroids. This is about communication. So I wanted to analyze Rich's communication. Now, Rich here, he's defending his friend. Completely understand that. But he uses a lot of techniques that are very persuasive. And I'm not saying that he's in any way a manipulative guy or somebody that should be avoided. What I'm saying here is that the communication techniques he uses are very persuasive techniques. And the very same techniques he uses linguistically are also used by people who are very manipulative. Again, I'm not saying he's manipulative, but I'm just saying this serves as a great way for us to analyze the communication, to learn, so that we can be more critical of the communication that we take in on a daily basis. And the idea is that if you learn to be more critical of other people's languaging, right, you'll be able to know when you're being taken advantage of or when you're being persuaded by, let's say, a manipulative person in a relationship, or maybe in a sales setting, somebody that's trying to be manipulative towards you, right? So I think this serves as a great communication for that. Let's get started.
Hey, today's topic. I've actually wanted to do this video for a long time, and I was actually going to do it with Mike O'Hearn. And I don't know if you guys know, but me and Mike have known each other for well over 20 years. And it's all the way back from the Gold's Venice days, and it's also back from the audition days. And back when I was heavily into acting, so was he. And every motherfucking audition I went on, he was fucking there, So we saw each other a lot. We went against each other a lot. We actually competed a lot in a lot of athletic shows. A lot of shows where it's athleticism, and he's an incredible athlete, and as you guys know, he's all around just one of the top guys out there. And people, this whole, is Mike takes steroids or is he natural? This thing is just like, Jesus fucking Christ, guys. Like, honestly, who the fuck cares? What the fuck does it matter? Think of it this way. You see, you're at the car races and you see a car, and it does the quarter mile in,
Okay, so the question asked is, does Mike O'Hearn take steroids? And his response is, who the fuck cares? Well, I wanted to point this out for a couple reasons. So there are times where you're engaging someone in a conversation, and without realizing it, they change the topic, right? They change the actual question being asked. And this is a form of framing, right? We're framing what the important part of the conversation is, right? Now, there are cases where this is done to purposely mislead, to purposely pull someone off course during a conversation. And there's times where this is done, in a helpful way. So, for example, if you go to your doctor and you ask your doctor, can I drink 12 gallons of battery acid without dying? The answer from the doctor could be yes or no, and that would be addressing your question. But the doctor could also say, well, that's not the question that matters here. The question is whether you would want to, or whether that would bring any value, right? So technically, the doctor would be changing topics, right? That's okay in certain contexts, but there are times where people who are manipulative will ask a different question in order to take you off of the track of what you were on. So he didn't really answer the question that was proposed, which is, does Mike O'Hearn take the steroids? And he does build an analogy here, and I'll zoom back a little bit so that we can hear his analogy.
It's just like, Jesus fucking Christ, guys. Like, honestly, who the fuck cares? What the fuck does it matter? Think of it this way. You see, you're at the car races and you see a car, and it does the quarter mile in 8.2 seconds. So it's like, well, does he have a supercharger, or does he not have a supercharger? Well, I think he has a supercharger. Well, I don't think he does. Okay, let's ask him. Do you have a supercharger? No, it's not a supercharger. Oh, he's fucking lying. He has a supercharger. He's a fucking liar. I know he has a super. Okay. All that matters is how fast the car was and how the car kicked every other ass's car there. And that car was the superior car. That's all I give a fuck about. When I go to the car races and I watch the cars race, I don't give a fuck how that car won. All I know is that motherfucking car won, and that car kicked every other car's ass, and it doesn't really fucking matter. Who gives a fuck? All that matters is what car is the fucking top car. And when it comes to this world, I don't know about you guys, but when I...
Okay, so he's saying that, this high performance car, who cares if it has an engine, a supercharged engine or whatever. Well, so when we have an analogy like that, it sounds like it makes a lot of sense. The only problem is here, that analogy doesn't quite fit with the original question, which was, does this person do steroids or not? Now, let's talk about why those aren't the same, right? The metaphor doesn't quite fit in this case. And what I would say to that is, well, in a contest with cars, you're not worried about damaging the car quite like you are about somebody's body. And if somebody's afraid whether or not to take steroids, the important question there might be, does Mike O'Hearn take steroids? Because I want to emulate that guy in every single way, right? So if you take steroids, it's a little different than someone having a performance supercharged engine, right? The other thing is, in that example, if a supercharged engine were illegal in the contest, right, that would be a big thing, right? Because steroids are illegal in certain sporting events. So I think that's why that question matters, and I don't think that analogy is entirely accurate. But he is saying that that's his personal way of seeing it. So I don't want to disregard that, but he was saying, well, that's how I see it. The most important thing is winning. The most important thing is the outcome and the performance. Not necessarily, because I think the concern people have with Mike O'Hearn is they're afraid he's lying, right? So aside from whether or not he uses the steroids, there's a bit of controversy not just about whether or not he uses them. It's about whether he lies about them. So I think that's important here too.
I was young and upcoming, I'd go to Gold's Venice and I'd work out with guys that were all bigger than me, better than me, and I didn't really question like whether they did this, all I knew was they were better, and my goal is to be better. And one day I'm going to be better than that motherfucker right there. Right now, he's making me look like...
Okay, that's a great attitude. He's saying when he went to the gym, he didn't look around and question whether or not so-and-so did steroids, probably because he already was doing steroids himself. And I don't know. I don't know if I really believe that. I don't know if I believe that a young up-and-coming bodybuilder who wants to be the best isn't asking themselves, does he do steroids? Do I need to do steroids? Is this an essential part of the training regimen, or can I get there without steroids?
Like a fucking pussy. He's fucking destroying me in every way. But just wait, motherfucker, because I'm gonna work my motherfucking ass off and do whatever it takes to fucking pass your ass up. And that was my mentality. And
okay, so here he says, well, I'm gonna pass your ass up. That's my mentality. So I'm pointing this out because this is the first time, aside from talking about Mike O'Hearn's work ethic, this is the first time where he brings up work ethic as an important part of this conversation. Work ethic is absolutely an important part of the conversation about steroids, but it isn't the question that was asked. The question that was originally asked was, does Mike O'Hearn do steroids? So I just want to point that out, that you're going to see a lot about, this question of work ethic and strength and determination and persistence. But again, we're not going to get the answer to the original question for a long time.
Every time I worked out, that's what I thought about. And I guess it's a weak man's mentality, to make excuses and this.
Okay, it's a weak man's mentality to make excuses. This is important because you, the viewer, and this is what I want to point out, right? He may very well feel that way. But oftentimes people will use that as a way to persuade. So they'll say, you're not a weak person, are you? You better adopt my belief system and my mindset. You better buy this product. You better buy this truck. You're not weak. You don't want you want a nice big 4-wheel drive truck. You're not weak, are you? Right? So think about him. He knows his audience. He knows that the most important thing to them is being tough, jacked, being manly, right? It's a very manly, or I should say a very strength-based pursuit, right? To be a bodybuilder. That being said, I think he's sort of capitalizing on this insecurity that the viewer might have, which is, I don't want to be seen as weak, right? So if you don't adopt the mindset, I want you to see the double bind that's kind of here. The catch-22 is if you don't adopt his mindset, you're weak-minded, right? So I just want to point that out because you're going to see a lot of that in this video.
To know that. And the crazy thing is a lot of these fucking haters are guys that are taking a shitload of fucking shit. They're taking a shitload of juice, shitload of steroids, and they're talking shit about him. And it's like, he's a million times better than you, and you're taking all kinds of shit. So I can understand how you're angry, because I'd be pissed too if I was taking every motherfucking drug under their.
Okay, so here he's framing the haters as a lot of them being, just people who are taking steroids who aren't seeing the results, and I'm sure that's the case in some instances. However, there's probably a lot of people who don't take steroids, and they're wondering, should I take steroids? I want to look like Rich Piana. I want to be the best, right? Which is the criteria that Rich put forward. Hey, you got to be the best, right? You don't want to be weak-minded. But somebody might have sat there without steroid use. Maybe they've been training as hard as Mike O'Hearn or close to it for 5 years, and they're sitting here going, I'm getting nowhere. Am I doing something wrong? Maybe it is the juice that's the deciding factor, right?
Son, and this guy was making me look like a little fucking natural fucking boy, and I'm.
Oh, he makes you look like a little natural boy. Okay, so again, we're gonna see this double bind, and we're gonna see the constant shaming of anyone who raises what I believe to be a legit criticism of, or a legitimate concern, we'll put it, as to whether or not a certain bodybuilder does steroids. And to assume that it's only a weak-minded individual, a natural little boy who would think of something like that. Again, it's persuasive, but it's not necessarily the most healthy kind of persuasion we could be using. It's sort of going into that realm of what I consider to be manipulation.
Taking every drug there is, that would piss me the fuck off. I'd be frustrated as fuck. And so think about that shit, guys. Who gives a fuck? Who cares what the fuck he is doing? Worry about what the fuck you're doing, and worry about what you're gonna do to be better than that person. But I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay, so when we're talking about framing, right, a very powerful technique to use is when you are being questioned, is to flip that around and make counter accusations, right? This is a very powerful framing technique, because if somebody has anything negative to say about you, rather than you having to answer for that, you could just point the finger at them and say, hey, it isn't what I'm doing, it isn't what Mike is doing, it's what you're doing, right? Why don't you focus on yourself? Why don't you get your life in order before you start throwing stones, right? What is that? The old people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So it's a powerful technique, right? I recommend that you use it, but I also recommend that you be aware when other people have shifted the accusations from them onto you, right?
You're never gonna be better than that person. You know why? Because you're a weak-minded motherfucker, and all you're doing is talking shit and trying to make excuses of why you'll never be as good as him. And the truth is,
again, weak-mindedness and excuse making. The truth is, even if somebody was coming from a weak mindset, even if they were making excuses, it doesn't make the question of whether or not Mike O'Hearn uses those substances, it doesn't make that question unimportant, right? It doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate concern that somebody would ask that. So again, if you're asking any legitimate concern, asking about any legitimate concern or levying any legitimate criticism against Rich or Mike O'Hearn, you're sort of lumped into this category. Again, there's a lot of shaming going on here.
You never will be as good as him. That's the truth. You know it, and that's why you're talking shit. So think about that shit. Why don't you become...
Okay, so just to kind of point out another example, I want to show you, we're talking about how Rich is using this, but let's talk about how somebody toxic would use it, like let's say in a relationship. Let's say you found evidence of somebody having an affair that you're in a relationship with, and you confront them about it. Instead of answering the question of whether or not there's something going on with them and this other person, they point the finger at you and say, you are only saying this because you are insecure. You're just not secure in the relationship. You're a whiny little boy, and you're so fearful that you're paranoid about me, right? Again, that person didn't answer the original question. They tried to get it off the topic as quickly as possible. And I just want to point this out so that the next time somebody uses that on you, you'll be able to guide the conversation back onto the point, right? The kind of quick, and I'll have more techniques and more videos about how to handle that, but the kind of quick answer of how to handle that is to simply restate the question, very void of emotion, right? So you sort of address what they just said. I hear what you're saying. However, my question was, and then you go back to your original question. And that's when they go to make the accusation. Oh, you must just be insecure. Okay, well, you're entitled to think that. You're okay, it's okay that you think that, but the original question was, and then you restate the original question. And that kind of keeps them from being able to duck and dodge. And you can just repeat this as many times as you want until it's ridiculous. It's actually a pretty effective strategy. Now, if they keep the charade going, there's other techniques we can use, but we'll cover those another time.
A stronger person, give props where props are due and say, man, that guy fucking looks amazing. He looks better than me. Who gives a fuck how he looks, how he got to there, how he looks better than, who gives a fuck? He looks better than you. Give him props. He looks great. He looks better than me. And you know what? My goal is to look better than him. And I'm going to shut my mouth and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to fucking do whatever it takes in the gym to fucking look better than him. I'm not going to sit and run my fucking mouth because I ain't fucking doing nothing. Maybe it makes...
Okay, so I want to talk about, I'm just running my mouth and not doing what I need to do. So if anyone raises a legitimate question, right, again, all of a sudden this is framed as you're running your mouth, right, like some punk, right? Again, I just want to point this out because it's not running your mouth to ask someone a very legitimate question. It's not running your mouth to call someone out for lying. It's not running your mouth to ask somebody for some sort of evidence, right? It can be, but in a lot of cases, it's a legitimate concern. So I want you to notice when people are using these shaming tactics instead of actually addressing the concern or the point that you brought up.
Makes you feel better. I don't think it does. I don't think it does anything. I think it makes you look like a stupid fucking jealous little bitch. That's what I think.
Do I even need to point that out? It makes you look like a stupid, jealous fucking little bitch. What the fuck is that? Okay? That's so extreme that I hope it's transparent. But when you're talking about the guys watching his videos, they may be 13-year-old boys. They may be 15-year-old boys who are looking to form their identity, right? And maybe they're looking for the most masculine way to do that, and they're looking at people to be role models. Now, I'm not saying that he's not a good role model in many areas, but I don't think that framing anybody who has that concern is being ridiculous. I don't feel that way.
So I just had to get this out there because I'm so fucking tired of all these fucking little pussy ass motherfuckers that just run their mouth and they're not going in and doing what the fuck they need to do. The guys that are where they are, they didn't get there running their mouth and being jealous and talking shit about everyone. Michael Hearn has never talked shit about one motherfucking person, as far as I know. Anytime I've talked to him, he's never said one negative fucking thing, because he's a positive, motivating fucking guy, you know. And that's what separates a champion from a fucking pussy.
Okay, again, so now not only are you a pussy if you raise these questions, you're talking smack, right? And you're not being positive, right? He's saying, look, Michael Hearns never talks smack about anybody. He's always been positive. Nobody brought up that Michael Hearn was talking smack. Nobody made that accusation. It's really not relevant here whether or not he talks smack. The question is, again, to bring it back to the original question, does he or does he not use those substances? And did he or did he not lie about it, right? That's kind of part of the question here.
And, you know, I hope I can, you know, at least open your guys' eyes that, you know what, I don't give a fuck. All I know is he looks great, and give him credit. He looks a million times better than you. Admit it. It takes a big man to admit someone looks better than you. Why don't you be that big man?
Okay, nobody is failing to admit that Michael Hearn looks better than them. Okay, that's again not the point at hand. We're seeing a lot of smoke screens and a lot of sleight of mouth, I guess you could call it, to avoid this you know, the original criticism which he's continued to dance around. He hasn't really addressed whether or not, you know, he uses the substances or whether or not he lied about it.
I mean, because it's obvious and everyone knows it. So just shut your fucking mouth and fucking put all that anger into the fucking weights.
Again, shut your mouth, put your anger into the weights. It's the second time he's made a reference to just shutting up and getting in the gym. Well, of course that's what you want to do if you want to be successful. However, shutting your mouth is also something that you do when you stop criticizing someone, right? And so when we're looking at this, is he saying shut your mouth because he wants you to, you know, he wants you to shut your mouth and work out? Or is he saying that because he wants you to stop, you know, attacking him and his friend online? I don't know.
And fucking do something. Make a difference. Now, my opinion. Does Michael Hearn take steroids, or is he natural? Well, I couldn't fucking tell you. I have no fucking idea. Because unless I see him fucking put something in his ass or put something in his mouth, I don't know. But I can tell you one thing, that looking at him, there is not one fucking sign of him taking steroids.
Okay, so he didn't answer the question. He didn't say, no, he doesn't, right? So I want to point this out because this is the least committed way that you could ever answer in someone's defense. This is saying, well, I didn't see it. I didn't see it take place with my own eyes. If I didn't see him shoot up or take a pill, then there's no possible way, or it's unlikely that he really does. You know, I'm going to call bullshit on this a little bit. Like, if you're friends with someone, I feel like this is going to come up in conversation. And if it didn't come up in conversation ever, maybe it does speak to Michael Hearn's, you know, speak to the idea that maybe Michael Hearn doesn't use substances. But I just want to point out that the evidence procedure that he uses to determine whether or not he's doing steroids is, I didn't physically see it, right? That's like saying, well, the person wasn't in visible sight of the camera when they took the money, but they walked in with a bag that didn't have money. They walked out with a bag full of money. We didn't actually see them put it in the bag, but we definitely, because of that, we can't rule that that person ever, you know, took the money. Okay, maybe a dramatic metaphor I'm using here that maybe isn't perfectly apt, but the way I see it is that's the standard for evidence, is like the only way to know if somebody's doing steroids is if you physically see them. Then he goes on to talk about the evidence of steroids and what you would see if somebody did steroids. Well, that's true, but a lot of people have come against that and said, well, that's not always true. Not everybody's body reacts quite the same to steroids. So he's going to go into some of the symptoms of heavy steroid use. And I would say, yeah, that's true. He doesn't necessarily have those. Some people online have argued that in some pictures he does have those you know, attributes. again, I don't really care whether or not he really does, but I just want to point out the way that he answered this was a little bit evasive, not gonna lie.
And there's a lot of other guys out there, guys that are half his size, that I can look at and say he's definitely taking steroids. And let me give you guys an explanation. Now, when you get on a cycle, your blood volume goes up, your vascularity becomes, your veins get bigger, you become more vascular, and these guys that are just full of veins everywhere are 100% on a fucking huge cycle. And that's why they're fucking vascular everywhere, and they look like fucking road maps. Natural guys don't get that. When you're natural, you don't get fucking veins through the shoulders and arms and big fucking veins this big, and it doesn't happen. When you're natural, you don't get that shit. And go study his physique. He doesn't have fucking crazy veins everywhere.
Okay, I don't know if this is true or not. It might be true, so I'm not gonna speak on this. I have no expertise on this.
His physique looks very natural. Does he have crazy acne? Never seen Mike with acne. Is he fucking bald? Okay, Mike's almost 50 years old, all right? And I see guys in their 20s and 30s that are fucking bald from steroids. So, have I ever seen him bloated, steroid bloat, which you guys see it all the time, guys that are bloated from the drugs. I've never seen him have a bloated steroid look ever in my life. Known him for over 20 years. Is he strong as fuck? Yeah, he's strong as fuck. That motherfucker is strong as fuck. I've trained with him and he is amazingly strong. Does that mean he takes steroids? No, that doesn't mean shit, because he's been strong since he was a fucking teenager. He was powerlifting as a teenager, and if you look back at his old pictures, he pretty much looks the same. He's just refined his body.
Okay, I did a little bit of digging around. You might have found something that I didn't, but I didn't see any pictures of him when he was 16 where he looked 270 pounds of muscle. I didn't see that. Or I should say, he didn't look anything like he did when he was young. Now, when he was 16, I didn't really see that. Don't get me wrong, he genetically had some amazing attributes. And again, we don't know that he wasn't cycling on when he was a teenager. Now, granted, that I don't know anything about these substances. So a lot of people have said in response to that, well, that would be impossible. He would be, in very poor health by the time he was older. I don't know. I'm just saying these are some of the things I've read online. You make your own decision. I'm just saying that it's possible that what he's saying just plain isn't true about him being 16 and being, in any way jacked like he is now.
He hasn't really gotten bigger over the years. And if he was taking steroids, he would have continued to get bigger. If you do this shit for 30 years and you're taking steroids, you're going to continue to get bigger. He hasn't gotten bigger. He was a fucking monster as a teenager. Go fucking do your research. So I'm just pointing out the obvious clues, guys, that just because someone's better than you, you can't make a fucking excuse to make you feel better about yourself. That's not the answer. Give a motherfucker props and realize.
Again, the finger is pointed to the listener. You're just making excuses. You should be giving this guy props. Again, nobody is not giving this guy props. Nobody is not saying this guy has an amazing physique. In fact, the fact that he has amazing physique is why people are bringing up these accusations to begin with.
Is that you need to work harder. You need to fucking do more. And that's what this is all is. It's all insecure, jealous little bitches that want to fucking talk shit because someone looks better.
It's all jealous, insecure little bitches that want to talk shit. Notice the amount of shaming that's built in and layered upon that, right? Somebody could consciously refute that. But if Rich Piana is somebody that you look up to, especially if you're a young, impressionable guy, you're not going to really pick up on that. You're going to adopt that mindset of like anybody who has a criticism about Mike O'Hearn must just be a shit-talking little bitch, when that's just not the case, right? I'm pointing this out, again, not to pick on Rich, because I would probably defend my friend as well in a similar way. So not hating on Rich because of that. What I'm saying, yeah, if I did, his fans might call me butthurt little haters or whatever. So what I'm bringing up here is you're going to see the same stuff used on you all the time, right? You're going to say that, let's say you present an argument, I think we should do because it'll lead to B, and people go, no, you want to do A because you're insecure, you're evil, you're terrible, you're not working hard enough. You need to be giving props. That's what I'm saying. It's just be aware of it, right? It's really, I don't think it's being used in a terrible negative way here, but just be aware of it when it's being used on you.
And the thought in their head that he's not taking steroids, and here I'm fucking putting needle in my ass every fucking day and I can't look as good as him, is fucking killing you. It's just fucking eating you up inside. So anyway, is Michael Hurt natural? I definitely believe he could easily 100% be natural.
Okay. Is he natural? Again, here's how he's going to hedge his next statement, right? Hedging is where you kind of leave something open enough that you could wiggle out of it later if it's ever proven to be false, right? So you could say, well, is this person is Michael Hurt natural? And he says, well, it's definitely possible, right? So the possibility exists. But here's an important thing, right? The possibility of a thing doesn't mean that that thing is actually true or that there's any evidence for that thing. So when you say, oh, it's possible, that doesn't answer the question of whether it's the case or not, right? It doesn't really move us forward in any way towards that argument, right? Acknowledging the possibility of something doesn't mean that it's true. I mean, it's possible that unicorns exist on the earth. It's possible. We haven't seen them. It's possible. Does that mean it's probable? Does that mean we should base our decisions off of that? Hell no, right? So just because something is possible doesn't mean that it's really something worth believing. And I think that's the case here, is that you notice how he says, well, it's possible.
I don't see any reason why he couldn't. Now, there's video out there of me and him training together, and he's not 300 pounds. He's not, he's not something that's like, holy shit, that's unbelievable. He just has a perfectly put together amazing physique, which is what he chooses. That's what he...
Okay, him saying, well, he's not 300 pounds. That's not evidence that somebody doesn't use steroids. If they're 270 or 204, whatever Mike O'Hearn is, that wouldn't be evidence of that, right? So saying, well, I didn't steal the money because I didn't throw $1 million into my bank account. I only threw, I only have 100,000 in my bank account. And if I was stealing, I'd have had 1 million, right? It doesn't really determine the original question, which is the money being put into the bank account, right? Now, again, dramatic metaphor. We're not talking about stealing here, but just wanted to kind of point out structurally what was going on with when he's saying, well, he's not 300 pounds. He's less than that. Therefore, he couldn't be doing steroids. I don't know if I really think that's a good excuse. Good reasoning, I should call it.
Once. That's what he is. I don't believe he's something that people look at and be like, oh, that's impossible. That there's no way someone, he's weighing around between 240 and 250. Maybe sometimes he goes over 250, but when he's in top shape, he's between 240 and 250. Now, I believe he's 6'2", and I don't think that's something that's like, oh, I can't fuck it, that's impossible. I can't believe. I mean, come on, guys. You know what I mean? So,
come on, guys. Come on. Yeah, actually, that's exactly what the problem is. The problem is that he's maintaining that weight, but he's also completely shredded, right? So that's kind of, based on my limited research about steroids, that's kind of the issue, is that when people start to get around 250 pounds with perfectly proportioned muscles that are completely shredded and ripped, well, that's when it becomes a little bit hard to believe that they're not using some sort of supplement, even with the hard work, right? So we're talking even somebody who works their face off, it's very difficult to stay ripped above a certain, above a certain point. You start to bulk up after 250 pounds, you're going to tend to see a lot of people that are more like power lifters, right? Not to say they don't do steroids, but you're going to see a lot of people who are doughy at that weight, right? It's a little hard to maintain 270 without being somewhat, carrying a little extra fat on them. So he's sitting at like between 4 and 8% body fat when he does these fitness photo shoots and stuff. That's very, very, very difficult to maintain at that body weight, from everything I've read. So do your own research.
I'm just trying to fucking put this out there. I think that I'm the only motherfucking person that'll come out and say this shit. But again, I've known him for over 20 years, and I've watched him. And back when I was young at Gold's Venice training, I would see this motherfucker repping 150s like they were nothing, back in the day, and he's still doing it. And he's just been consistent, and his work ethic is unbelievable. There's times when I couldn't sleep at night, so I'm like, fuck, I'm just going to go to Gold's Venice because they're open right now.
Okay, so here he's talking about how great Mike's character is and how great his work ethic is. That really isn't, again, related to the question that was originally posed, whether or not he does, use these substances. And I guess the analogy that I could draw here is, if you were in a courtroom and you were trying to ask the question of whether so-and-so did it or not, and the lawyer that's trying to help that guy to not get thrown in jail is saying, well, my client's such a nice guy. My client has such great work ethic. My client gives to charity, right? At a certain point, you're going to go, okay, I get that, but it doesn't really answer the right. Now, don't get me wrong. It's persuasive. It's very persuasive. But at a certain point, like let's say in a courtroom, you're going to want to ask the only important question that matters, which is, did he or did he not do it? And in this case, we're not really talking much to that question. The only answer he's given to whether or not he did it is, well, it's possible that he may not have, because I didn't see him physically do it. Okay? Not really a solid answer there.
I roll down there, and guess who's in the gym at 4:30 in the fucking morning fucking killing it? Michael Hearn. There's like maybe 5 people in the gym, and he's one of them, and he's fucking going at it. And that's what he does. He gets up and he's at Gold's Gym every morning at 4:30 fucking killing it. His work ethic is unbelievable. And that's where the credit should be given, is his work ethic and how much he puts into it and the consistency over the years. And what I don't understand is people can't sit there and think, okay, this guy's been training for 30 years. He's consistent. He never misses a workout, a meal. What the fuck do you think is going to happen if you do something? If you play golf for 30 fucking years and you play every fucking day, are you going to be a good golfer? You're going to be an amazing golfer. Anything in life that you do for 30 fucking years, every fucking day, you put your heart and soul into that shit. Anything in the world, you are going to be the best at it.
Okay, I agree. If you play golf for 30 years, you're going to be really good, right? The question here isn't whether or not Mike O'Hearn is good. It's whether or not he's moving beyond genetic potential using substances, right? So in this analogy, it doesn't quite fit, right? Remember earlier I sort of went over the analogy and I said, well, the analogy that he's using with the car doesn't quite fit here for these reasons. Well, part of critical thinking is our ability to look at metaphors, look at analogies and say, does that fit entirely? So when I say, does that analogy fit? I mean, does it represent, what we're actually looking at in this real life situation? Does this analogy sort of fit? Well, is golf like bodybuilding? Well, the problem with bodybuilding, the problem with why people are saying no, he isn't natural, is because he went beyond what the genetic potential of most humans are, right? Such that nobody would have ever repeated that feat. Like if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger admitted to steroid usage, though he says he didn't use as much as the people use nowadays, right? So it's a genetic potential thing here. It's not a skill thing. So if you look at golf, that's based on your ability to, there's some athleticism involved, there's some physicality involved. But if you do it for 30 years, you're going to continue to improve. Whereas bodybuilding, you're going to hit a plateau. So I would say almost the analogy that would be better here is, if you play basketball for 30 years, are you suddenly going to be 6'3" tomorrow, right? So if a 4'8" guy wants to play basketball for 10, 20, 30 years, is he going to be better than the person who's genetically 6'8" who also trains? The answer is no, he's not going to be better. So we're talking about hitting genetic potential here. We're not, The reason I point that out, though, is you'll see these metaphors used often by people that are being persuasive, being even manipulative. But the question to always ask when people are using metaphors is, does the metaphor sort of map to reality? Is that metaphor an appropriate metaphor to use here? Is it, I guess the technical word would be, is it analogous? Are these two things enough alike for us to be able to kind of make some generalizations about it?
Whether it's acting, fucking golfing, fucking playing tennis, anything in the world that you do for 30 fucking years every single day, and you're passionate and you love it and you give it all you got, you're gonna be amazing at it. So when you guys think about that, put it in perspective. If you've been training for 5 years, you've been taking steroids for 2 years, and you're saying, oh, there's no way he's not, are you fucking kidding me? He's been doing it for 30 fucking years. Come on, use your fucking brain. You don't think that's possible? You don't think it's possible to train for 30 fucking years?
Again, he's saying, is it possible? Yes, unicorns are possible. Okay, again, talking about possibility. Is it possible is not the question. It's, is it likely? Is it likely that he isn't using steroids? And the answer seems to be probably that it's very unlikely, right? At least based on this video. This video didn't really provide us with much in the way of evidence to make anyone believe any differently. Again, it was persuasive. The person might feel, well, I'm going to be ashamed if I believe that he did steroids because it means I'm not focusing on my own growth and things like that.
Give it all you got, consistent, never miss a meal, never miss a workout. You don't think you can attain that? Come on, think about that shit. You should be improving all the time, whatever it is you're doing. If you play golf every day, you don't play golf and in 10 years you reached your fucking limit and you can't get any better. And for the next 20 years you stay the same.
Again, golf is different than bodybuilding.
No, you keep getting better over the years. That's the way it works. So can you really sit and think, wow, this guy who's trained for 30 years, he's fucking, to me, I think it's possible to gain more in 30 fucking years. Not putting them down, I'm just saying that I'm just trying to show you guys that your mentality is just that you're a weak ass excuse making little bitch to sit here and fucking say that shit. Now, if you worked your ass off for 30 years, never missing a meal, never miss a workout, yeah, you could do the same. How would it feel if you did that and you worked your ass off and you put everything you had into it, and then you had people talking shit, trying to say that, oh, this, like.
Again, we have sort of appeal to emotion here, right? How would you feel if you worked your ass off without steroids for 30 years and then you were just shit talked by people? Well, it would feel pretty bad. What does that matter? What is that? Who gives a shit about? I'll play Rich here. Who gives a shit? You're just a pussy. If that's the case, right? No, of course not. It would be upsetting, but at the same time, not really relevant to the question. I think if I were in that position, I would expect people to also have questions about how I got there. And I wouldn't find that to be too upsetting that people thought that I used some sort of cheat or something like that, or some sort of substance to get there. I wouldn't find that to be so upsetting that people would say that. I think it'd be a pretty normal response, especially if I would have to be, in order for me to be in that category, I would have to be such a genetic freak in order to be there, have my work ethic be so much greater than everybody else, right? Yeah.
Give the motherfucker credit. Give him credit where credit is due. So anyway, guys, is Michael Hurd natural? Does he take steroids? Well, my opinion is he could very easily be natural. I wouldn't doubt it for a second. So I'm just trying to show you guys the other side of the coin that you guys obviously you haven't even flipped the coin over to look at the other side. You just open up your mouth because you see someone who looks so much better, and
you haven't even flipped the coin to look at the other side. I think anybody who poses that question, does he do steroids, I think they're trying to get to the truth. So I don't think that's saying, oh, you're so closed-minded, you're so closed off. Well, present some reasoning behind what you're saying, other than just, I believe it's possible that he could be natural, and not really backing that up in any way.
It's frustrating and pisses you off because you know deep down inside that you could never look like that. And you shouldn't think that way. You should think that, fuck, if Michael Hearn can do it, I can do it. That's how you should think about that shit. Give him props. It's better to aim high. It's better to fucking set your goals high and be like, fuck, I can do that shit. Rather than, oh, I can never do that, so therefore let's go talk shit about him and say that he's lying. What the fuck? Come on, people. There's too many fucking weak-minded, fucking jealous, insecure little motherfucking bitches in this fucking world, and social media has fucking brought them all out. You know, I'm so fucking sick of it. Back in the day, this shit didn't exist. No motherfuckers were talking shit, because the only way you could talk shit was to the motherfucking face. So none of that shit was going on, you know, before so.
Okay, so now you're not just talking shit. You're hiding behind a keyboard and talking shit. I don't think it's talking shit to ask somebody, you know, if they use or not, especially when pretty much, you know, pretty much a lot of people have already got their mind made up that you know, we're talking, you know, and do your own research too. Again, I'm not saying it's really that big of a deal if he does use steroids, and even if he lies about it, I'm not saying it's the only defining trait about him as a person. I'm just saying, like, do your own research.
Social media, now everyone can talk shit about everyone, because all the little pussy ass bitches can now go on social media and talk shit. You know, it's fucking bullshit. You know, and is there any real men out there? If there is, shut your fucking mouth. So anyway, guys, Michael Hearn, fucking respect, big props, my brother. And, you know, I've been wanting to do this video. We talked about this shit a million times. So here it is, man. I did the shit on my own. You're busy, I'm busy. And big props.